we go. I want to thank everybody for showing up and participating in the Dissertation Tool Box. You'll notice that we did change the name. The boot camp thing was kind of aggressive, so we changed it to a toolbox. And this is what we're going to be doing today. The 16th of the 2017. We're going to be doing the IRB, proposal writing, and the basics of statistics. So we're kind of whittling it down. We're going to have like 20-minute, 25-minute sessions. We're going to try to get some more questions out of all you students that have attended today. So please hold your questions and then use the type box. We're trying to get you guys to participate. Let us know what's going on. So here we go. Number one, the Institutional Review Board. I'm going to be doing the clicking and the mechanics of it, but Dr. Kenworthy is going to be telling me what to do with her aide, Hiroko, the wonderful Hiroko. Number two, the proposal writing is going to be done by our own writing learning specialist down here in San Diego, Courtney Scarborough. And last but not least, you're going to be getting statistics from me again. You guys must be pretty tired of statistics by now. So without further ado, all right, from the Alliant webpage, first thing you're going to do is go to My Alliant. That's the portal. From the portal, you get this little box here. Okay, the quick links, you're going to go to Alliant Departments. Click on that. It's going to take you here. And very conveniently, the IRB is right at the very top. See that? There's the IRB link. You're going to click on that. And here's the main IRB page. So this thing is golden. It has a lot of information right on this very front page. I'm just going to go over it for you really quick. But here's the streamline. That's where you're going to enter your information. I'm going to show you just a couple minutes of that, how that works. But there's some important things here. They have user guides, at a glance documents. On the other side, they have most of the forms you're going to need. They have examples. They have information. But number one, before you apply for an IRB, you have to have this National Institute of Health certification requirement. So again, before you start your IRB, you need to go ahead and click this link and take the little test, and they're gonna say, okay, you know how to do this. And yeah, Dr. Kenworthy or Hiroko, if you hear something that I make a mistake on, please just tell me. Okay. And timelines, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the questions that you already have can probably be answered right on this front page. So I'm going to go over some of the forms here. Give me a second while I switch over to my other program. And again, there's a drag time between what I see and what you guys are seeing. Ta-da, there it is. Okay, let's make it big. So the principal investigator's name, the ID number, and protocol title, right? So this is the student. And you got to basically, what are you going to study? What's the overview? If you're going to have participants, you got to describe what your subjects, who they are, make sure, if they're age appropriate, et cetera, what kind of criteria you're looking for in your students, what kind of criteria that would keep people from participating, and a lot of different basic information that they're going to be looking for to make sure that what you're doing will not harm any of your subjects, basically. And again, here's this is just a sample. I suggest if you're getting close to your IRB stage, you start looking around on the website, start checking this stuff out on your own, because it can get kind of lengthy, but there's a lot of business in here, okay? Wow, it does go on. Okay, so let me pull up another one. Please hold. Okay, so this is a guidance tool, right? So they filled it out. So if you're not sure what to put in to your expedited form, your application form, please look at the sample. Okay, student, there's the student's name, your school ID, Protocol title. In other words, what is the name of your dissertation going to be? Study overview. What are you going to study, right? That's what goes in this box. Participants. Who's going to be in this study? How many people are going to be in this study? You have to do a power analysis to make sure you're going to have enough sample size to give you a good power 0.8. And we do have a G-Power power analysis video already on Hawk 5. Okay. And age range of the participants. What criteria are you looking for? What criteria will keep people out of your study? And et cetera, et cetera. So, and again, this is just a practice one that's already been filled out. And, you know, they please don't cut and paste this. You know, make it your own. Put your own stuff in there. But there's a pretty good example of your first expedited form in detail. I'm just going this over by myself, stretching this out in case I ever want to write a dissertation. Wow, goes on and on and on. Okay, so I'm going to get back to the website. So give me a second here. I'm going to download something here. All right, so not yet. Okay, back to the website. So again, here's some user guides, faculty supervisor user guide. So whoever is your chair or who's going to be on your board, they should already have one of these. Here's an at-a-glance guide for students. Again, a ton of resources to answer your questions, to help you through this process. It can be a long, drawn-out process, but again, it's supposed to be. Your dissertation is going to be your magnum opus. It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your 20-plus years of education, so don't expect it to be easy, okay? So here's your IRB form, some down here. Very important. Any questions about the IRB, go right here. IRB questions, contact Alliant-IRB@alliant.edu, and there's a phone number, 858-635-4741. Can you guys all see that out there? It's right here. Okay, any questions? There's the contact information. So I'm going to give you like a 5-minute tour of the Streamline process. So please click the Streamline button. You're going to go ahead and use your regular Alliant login with one exception. Do not put @Alliant in your username. I'll say that again. Do not put @Alliant.edu in your username. So just whatever if it's your first initial last name or first name period last name, okay? But your login is going to be the same. And so here's your Streamline. This is your main page, okay? So this is the one that I've been playing around with. So what you can do is you could build it in parts. You can go in and start adding, uploading items. You don't have to do them all at the same time. You can save them anytime you want, access them anytime you want. So let's just take a quick look. And let's say we're going to go to IRB. And the protocols, you're going to go to the plus sign. Not the IRB protocol, but the actual plus sign. And what that's going to do is start a brand new one, right? This is a new protocol. So you would type in your last name, first name here. What kind of protocol are you going to run? There's all kinds here. What's the title of your dissertation? You could save it. Okay? So, and again, you could work on this in parts, save as you go. What else you got up here? You got IRB lookups. All my protocols, my reviews, pending protocols. Pending, no. So anybody in the audience want to tell me where to go?
I think they can make reference to the guide for the details, and once, because it has to be, some of the sections have to be completed before you can go to the next step, such as study personnel, where you will have to include your co-investigator, who is your faculty supervisor, and then you have to go to protocol and notes to be able to upload the documents, and then the submission and approval on the left side will be how you process the protocol. But you have to have completed the first page in order to go to the next ones.
Got it. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run the mouse. Dr. Kenworthy, you just tell me where you want me to go.
Thank you, I will. So as was mentioned earlier, this is a sample protocol. It's filled in to kind of give everyone an idea of what should go into the application form. This example in particular is an expedited example. There's also either is currently or will be soon a full board application example as well on the web page. If you can scroll down just a little bit, please, to where it says review type in the box, expedited or full board. Thank you. This is oftentimes, I think, one of the more confusing designations for students to make, and there is some tools on the under the IRB web page to kind of help you try to determine where your study falls, if it falls within expedited or full board. Essentially, a lot of expedited studies tend to include they usually have participants that cannot be identified, and harm to participants is extremely minimal. They equate it to nothing more than your average kind of wait in a doctor's appointment lounge. So it's very minimal risk types of studies that fall under expedited. Full board requires review by multiple committee members all at once, and so that's the difference between the two processes. Full board is obviously more extensive of a process, and these where there is more than minimum risk to participants, or if you're working with populations as we get down that are identified in the risk categories. So under the first section for study overview, following this example is great. Providing as much detail as you can about your topic is really important, as well as making sure that you spell out any acronyms. Please keep in mind that the people from IRB are from a wide variety of disciplines within the fields of psychology, and so they may not be familiar with each and every acronym. So please make sure you spell it out the first time that you use that acronym. But make sure you have the purpose of the study outlined clearly, what your research is looking at investigating, who you're looking to include, and the procedures that you're going to use. If you're using particular tests, you should also then, or surveys and such, you should also outline what those are. Define them, make sure that they're included in appendices if they can be included in appendices. Scroll down, Richard, a little bit more to participants. So for participants, as is shown here in the example, including the power analysis is really important. It shows IRB members that you are taking into consideration the number of participants needed for your particular study in order to have the criteria met for that particular analysis that you're planning to use. So make sure that you outline what analysis that you're planning to use. A lot of people neglect to put that in and only include the power analysis, but not the type of statistic that they're actually going to be using. And then it goes down. If you continue scrolling down a little bit, it talks about obviously the age range. Inclusion for participation is important. Make sure that you are noting exactly who can be eligible to participate in your study, what's required. So if you know some forms in your study require that they must speak English or read English at a proficient level, then that should be included in the inclusion criteria. or if they're taking an online research, then they must have computer access. So that would be inclusion criteria. In 2D, scrolling down, is the exclusion. So anything that would exclude individuals from being in your study should be included there. And for example, under this one, it says if there's a particular screening measure, like if you are making sure that they have a certain reading level or something, again, indicate that in the exclusion criteria, and then that screening measure should be also included in the application itself. As you scroll down then to category E, 2E, this is where those vulnerable populations are listed. So if you check any of these, more often than not, it might fall under the expedited, expedited versus perhaps maybe full board. So depending on exactly what you're doing with this particular population, it could elevate it to full board. And if you don't have any, then none will be checked, and you don't need the rationale, which is right below it. But if you do check any of those boxes, be sure to include the rationale as to why your study is planning their population. So what is the relevance of using that particular population to your study? Should stop. Any questions so far? I don't want to get too far ahead. There are. Okay. Then 2F is just equity. So just ensuring, again, that you're offering it to everyone that's possibly going to meet inclusion criteria. If you scroll down to bullet point 3, section 3, the research procedures. Again, 3A can be really important. You want to make sure that IRB is very clear on how you're going to be conducting your study step by step. Keep in mind that sometimes it's easy to think in our head that it makes sense, but when you write it down on paper, make sure some studies are very involved, and those minute steps should be outlined in terms of exactly how you're going to be recruiting participants for your study. And sometimes we've even had students include schematics kind of drawing to show how it's going to be carried out. Again, that has to do more with those studies that are more detailed. But make sure that that's completely filled out and very clear for the IRB reviewer. And then if we scroll down to section 3C, again, just make sure that what participants will be asked to do step by step. So from an initial contact, being asked to participate, to final conclusion of the study, what's exactly happening, and how they're going to what exactly they're going to be doing and required of them. A lot of times students may include as well in this section time consideration, so how long it might take in this section, and then also in the section below in 3D, how long it might take for participants to complete the study. And that follows up with 3E. So make sure if you have multiple measures within your study, and then on 3E, you estimate it's only going to take 10 to 15 minutes, make sure that, again, those multiple measures are very brief and will only take participants about 10 to 15 minutes. We've encouraged students to run through the study themselves to kind of get a better idea on how long it might take. And make sure that that is consistent with information in your consent form to your participants. So often we run into that on the IRB where the times are not consistent between the two. So make sure everything's consistent throughout the protocol, and then from the time here listed on 3E to your consent form for participants. And I think we can scroll down some more, Richard. I don't think anything else mainly, again, you've went through that, was just describing the setting and so forth. Risks and benefits in section 4. If oftentimes there are very minimal risks to participants, and providing them with perhaps some local resources or 1-800 numbers for mental health services can be one way to help minimize any kind of potential minor risk. There oftentimes are not going to be direct benefits for participants. A lot of protocols we see, if they're offering gift cards, for example, a gift card drawing for participants, they list that as a benefit, and that's technically not a benefit to the participant for participating in the study. So please do not include that as benefits. More often than not, the studies that we see through our IRB typically have no direct benefits to individual participants. And so again, it has a statement right there, although some may receive financial or other inducements from a third-party survey administrator. Or they may receive the financial if it's a gift card drawing. In 4B, you need to explain in detail how you're going to minimize risk, if any risk is present. Again, 1-800 such counseling services or whatever, depending on your study, should go there. And then if we continue scrolling down into 5, our consent procedures. Again, it's oftentimes suggested that that participants complete a consent form, of course, but that they also, perhaps if there are screening questions, that there be a separate screening form where participants can be screened to ensure they meet inclusion criteria prior to having to waste any more of their time in completing study materials and then find out they're not eligible to participate. So always consider that if inclusion criteria, a brief screen, are you 18 and over, are you whatever population you're looking at, do you meet those? Yes, 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 and then they can take the demographics and rest of the materials for the study from there. Again, if we scroll down some more, just again, we will you'll describe the steps to prevent any kind of coercion, if any might be present. It's talking about, waiving informed consent. In 5D, again, oftentimes this is confusing for students. You might be requesting informed consent to be waived in an online study. And that would be, for example, when you're not requiring a signature on consent forms from participants. And so check that box, yes. Typically, online studies through Qualtrics and other types of survey providers will just have a checkbox, a yes and no. So they read through the consent form, they check the box, yes or no. They don't physically sign it. And so that's the purpose of asking to waive some or all required components of informed consent. And 5D1, again, continues to kind of just explain that with regards to the waiver. And then confidentiality. This is another confusing area for students. Oftentimes, data is confidential. The person's name and so forth is withheld, and or they're assigned a particular number. But whenever you've had physical contact, eye-to-eye contact with the participant, the data can no longer be then, because you do have some knowledge of that person and can potentially link their responses to them. In that sense, data would not be anonymous, but it could be still considered confidential. And so again, making that consistent with your consent form is really important. We've come across that quite often where they will say that it's anonymous, but then on the consent form, it says it's anonymous when in fact it's not. Also, when using online, if you're saying that the data will be anonymous, ensure that you're not requesting any kind of identifiers through those survey websites, such as It can store the IP addresses for people. And so many of the websites will have the option to not do that. And then again, it just kind of goes through. So if we scroll down to 6C and D, it kind of goes down through the rest of the process with your chair and HIPAA and so forth. And then the application checklist, please make sure that you fill that out completely, putting X's where things are attached and completed, and A if it's not applicable to your study. Be sure to include all materials in your appendices. Anything that the participant is going to see, IRB should be able to see. If, however, you're using, say, for example, test measures that you can't attach to an appendix, like, say, for example, an MMPI, then you'll need to include simply a brief description of what the MMPI is on the top of that, in the top of the protocol application, and then include if you have permission to use that test for your research purpose. So always make sure you include all permissions as well for the data, any kind of archival data or any kind of test instrument, and make sure that that's, again, referenced throughout in the appendices and such. Any questions? Oh, and please follow the informed consent on Appendix B as well.
Oh, notice it's got the old logo. Should we put the new logo in there? Or?
Yes, it can have the new logo for sure. Yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions from our audience? Anybody? All right, I think we're going to call it on that. I want to thank both Dr. Kenworthy and the wonderful Hiroko for that wonderful demonstration. So again, if you have any questions, what we just did here, I'm gonna clean up the video and take out all those horrible mistakes I made, and we're gonna load them up on Hawk 5. So, and again, Dr. Kenworthy and Hiroko, thank you so much. Yay!